recording is offered as a general source of information only. Contents are not intended as a solicitation to buy or sell specific investments or to provide tax, legal, or investment advice. Always seek advice on your specific circumstances from your financial advisor. Views of guest speakers may not be shared by Cory Vance or Arctic Fox Financial, Inc. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight at Open Office Hours with Cory Vance. That's me. So open office hours, the idea behind this is just to give you a no pressure, low pressure chance to get to know me and my guest, which I'll introduce in a minute here. Many financial advisors, they don't have a lot of time for folks with a smaller investment account, or they don't really know what to do with small business owners because it's just not their wheelhouse. It's not where they're comfortable. And I've spent most of my adult life either working in or managing or owning and operating a small business. And so I'm very familiar in that space, in the space that you're in right now. And I have had $1 million+ budget over that time, up to 15 employees, up to 5 locations in 5 different cities. So I get a lot of the intricacies of managing the people and physical locations and retail and customers and all the things that you deal with every day. And of course, I didn't do all of it perfectly. I learned a lot along the way and I had some great successes too. But this isn't really about me. This is about my guest tonight. I want to introduce her, Shama Yunus-Joynt. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. She's an HR consultant who specializes in small to medium businesses. She has over 20 years of people management experience and strives to provide business owners with HR support that is relevant, accessible, and affordable. Shama's company, Trestle Management, positions itself in service of small business owners and entrepreneurs like you, who recognizes your struggles, your triumphs, and everything in between. Welcome to Open Office Hours, Shama.
Hey, thanks for having me, Cory.
You're very welcome. And 20 years, that's a long time. I'm sure, like myself, you've learned a lot and you've had lots of successes too in that time. But if we can go back a little bit before that, what sort of led you to get into HR? It's not something that a lot of people are expert at. So what was your journey to get to that point?
Yeah, great question. Didn't go to school to become an HR consultant. I actually have a psychology degree and I have a background in crisis intervention, which actually comes in great handy for small business owners.
Sure.
So it's a useful skill. I had a lot of positions, government positions, a lot of customer service stuff. And then I also worked for small business owners. My family had small businesses through the years. And so I found that in any business that I would participate in, I'd be in and out, especially with family businesses, I would always end up taking over the admin piece. So I learned how to do payroll really early and those types of things. So all of the people processes. And then a number of years ago, I was working in a business that was Calgary-based that expanded into, it was a family-owned business, and it expanded into 2 other cities. And one of those cities was in another province. And so what occurred to me was that I needed to learn about employment standards. I needed to learn about the differences between the 2 provinces, just for payroll, and then other types of compliance things. And so I began to research all of these things. You can learn a lot of stuff off of the internet. It takes a little bit of time, but so I basically taught myself HR and I built the HR department for this company that expanded rapidly from 10 employees to about 45 in a very short period of time. And so there needed to be processes put in place and risks that were greater that needed to be managed, et cetera, et cetera. So I learned pretty much hands-on, and it was fantastic. It was the best way to learn. And then once I was done building that HR department, getting it ready and having it run as a good oiled machine, I thought, I want to go into corporate HR now and learn what that's all about. And so I transitioned into working in corporate HR, which is where I learned all of my trade, all of the tools of my trade, much, much bigger responsibilities, client groups of over 320 locations and all that stuff. So I did that for a number of years and really liked it. And I guess 6 years ago now, I decided to go out on my own as a consultant.
So it's interesting you say that. So you weren't formally trained. You didn't go to school to be an HR specialist. That's probably why, to be honest with you, that's probably why I think we get along so well because why I wanted to bring you on to open office hours because when I had my business for 15 years, I owned and operated a business. As I mentioned, my greatest challenge was with managing my staff. And I had a corporate lawyer, had a corporate accountant, but I was fluctuated between 2 and 12 or 15 staff. So I didn't have an HR department. I couldn't afford an HR specialist on staff. So where I did reach out to HR people who were formally trained, I had a really hard time meshing with them and gelling with them. But you didn't go that route. So like I say, that's probably why we get along so well. But also it's why I wanted to, like I said, to bring you on because I think a lot of small business owners, people that are watching tonight or whenever they're watching the recording, I'm guessing I think I'm normal, so they're probably like me. They probably struggle with that too, right? With finding an HR person who can understand them as an owner, but also is relatable and can handle all the things that they need help with. So that's why it's important for me to introduce you to my audience here and to my clients. So you mentioned quite a bit of different experiences there. So what is it about small business owners in particular? I know your family had some small businesses, but is there something about small businesses and small business owners in particular that has drawn you to this particular part of the HR world?
Yeah, I love that question because I think that's where I have a lot of thoughts and I have a lot of passion around it. I think that the biggest difference is just the amount of money that's available. So corporate HR operates in an environment where there's deeper pockets. There's room for mistakes if they're made. It's not always good to make mistakes. There's deeper pockets and the survivability and all of those things. That is just a different scale with a corporation. With a small business, there's so much more risk in terms of, you know what, you can't afford a single customer complaint. And if you do get one, it can really hurt you.
Mm.
As a small business owner, you probably start off on your own. You begin to get busier. So then you need to hire people. And you want to have these people behave exactly how you do with customers, right?
Right.
You need them to own the business without participating in the profit and loss. Let's be honest. That's what small business owners really want. And sometimes they luck out, right? Sometimes they get that one person who they just know that they can't live without. But then again, if you've got that one person holding on to all of the chips, then there's a lot of risk. What happens if they get hit by a bus and all of that stuff? So
Sure.
at some point, you have to start adding people and then you start getting culture forming, right? And then either they love you or they hate you or all of that stuff starts going on. And business owners, let's face it, they're in business because of what they're good at or what their passion is or what their reason was. They didn't start a business so that they could manage people, but then they have to. And that can be very baffling for some people and very difficult and very costly. What you said about not being able to find an HR consultant to gel with, I think that is a really big problem for small to medium business owners because most HR consultants have that corporate background like I do, but they then don't understand how to scale that down. So when you introduced me, you said that my company provides, relevant, accessible, and affordable HR. Those are things that you won't find with every HR consultant. So it may not be to the scale of your business. So a lot of different corporate processes just don't apply. So why bother with them? We don't need to be that fancy. We need to do with what we've got in front of us and the objectives that we need to reach. So I got to scale that part down. So it's got to be relevant. And then affordable is important because no one's got those deep pockets. So it's got to make sense for what you pay. And finally, it needs to be accessible. So try to find an HR consultant. How do you do that? and then find somebody. Is it somebody that is going to understand you, or they're going to charge you an arm and a leg, and on it goes? Typically what I find is that people call me when they have a huge problem on their hands. They're at a lawsuit, or there's an employee that's costing them money, or there's some crisis.
Yeah.
And so I help them out with that crisis. But the immediate next question I ask them is, how did we get here? What happened? Let's get into that and see how we can avoid this in the future. And so then that relationship is born. And I love it. I love partnering with small business owners, because everything is right there. It's right there. The immediate impact of a decision can be right there. And I love that about small business, where corporations, there's this huge machinery and you don't always see cause and effect.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure. I love what you said there about culture. One of my, I call them gurus, people, anyone who's smarter than me or been more experienced than me, that has learned a lot and been very successful, that I learned from through a book or whatever. I call them one of my gurus. So one of my gurus is, I've actually studied under him directly, is the Wizard of Ads. And he has helped many businesses become multi-million dollar businesses and scale incredibly. And he has a saying that your customer doesn't typically meet your best employee on their best day. They typically meet your average employee on their average day, if everything's going pretty well. And sometimes they meet your worst employee on their worst day, right? And that's where a lot of these dissatisfaction of customers and complaints come in. But when you talk about culture, it makes me think too, just think for myself, sometimes I was a pretty decent boss, but sometimes I was the worst boss on my worst day. I had bad days, and that came across to staff, and that affects culture, and that causes people to hate the boss or to resent the boss and not perform their best. And I think that's so important that someone like yourself can come in and help a small business owner assess and repair and build a strong, positive culture. Can you talk a little bit about how you do that, if you can, and just to give people an idea what that would look like if you were to come along and do that for them?
You bet. Yeah, absolutely. The thing about culture is that it's going to develop one way or the other, right? When you have people together, right? There's energy, there's how people interact, and the personalities that are there, the type of business that there is, et cetera, et cetera. There's a million things. And we're all human. We're all human. We all have bad days. We all have good days. We all have quirks. We all have things. And sometimes those things mesh wonderfully and sometimes they don't. But yeah, that's what I love about the people management business, is that people do not fit neatly into little spreadsheet cells. much to the chagrin of many a business owner, because that's what we want them to be. But that just doesn't happen. It doesn't pan out that way. So yeah, so culture will develop whether you do it intentionally or not. So that follows that you can develop an intentional culture. And part of that is, one of the biggest things is, in my humble opinion, that there needs to be room to be human. I just thought, you know what, we don't come to work and zip off our personality, hang it up on a hook and go to work like robots.
Sure.
Because we don't, even though there are some bosses out there that pretty much see their employees that way. But that is, in my opinion, it's really shooting yourself in the foot, because this person is human. They're going to do their absolute best for you as long as you set them up for success. And a lot of that means that you're going to support them. So when they're on an off day, they need to know that they're not going to get into trouble for being an off day. They can actually say, hey, I'm having an off day. And you can say, what do you need? How can I help you? The same way that you do that for your customers, why can't you do that for and the thing is, as a boss, when you say, I had a bad day, wouldn't it be great if your employees said, hey, Cory, you're looking tough today. You okay? Wow. There's this two-way conversation to support each other. And that is about an environment of just being decent and caring for each other. So how I do that is, it's two different things. One is, there needs to be some rules and regulations, some consistency in place, right? So most people who have businesses, who have employees, basically know how to pay their people because they have to, but they don't do much else, right? They likely don't have an employee handbook or a policy manual, or where does it say that this is against the law, the rules, or those types of things. Like they're pretty much handling them as they come up. And the problem is that if you've got two different employees with the same situation and it's handled differently, now you have accusations of favoritism and, all those other things. So it's really important to let people know that, hey, this is who we are. This is what we stand for. Here's the rules. So some basic sort of modicum of structure should be there in the form of an HR policy manual, an employee handbook. Hopefully when they're hired, they have a proper offer letter, because these are legal documents that should be there. And then there's also, having those things means that you're compliant with three basic pieces of legislation. So you've got human rights, you've got safety, and you've got employment standards. As an employer, you need to be able to be on the right side of the law with those things, because if not, you could face fines and lawsuits and mistreatment of employees that could be completely inadvertent, which you don't. So that's the basic thing that, that I would help you put into place. That way, every new person that comes in, they're onboarded correctly, they understand what the company is about, and we build on that to create onboarding programs or whatever else that makes sense. But that's the basics of it. The other piece then we look at in the visioning piece. So we know that the business owner did not start, as I said before, start the company to manage people. So the question becomes, how are you going to get these people to do the things you need them to do in order to reach those objectives? So how do we state that? It needs to be stated. They're not going to just mind read, right? So there's mission, vision, values type of work. A lot of times they'll have to write those types of things for their business plan. So a lot of companies have them, and then we'll revisit them to see what does all of this really mean and how are you living it? So we will have those types of conversations. We will look at what the main problems are. So let's say if it's an organization with a lot of conflict, then we'll do work around conflict management. Let's talk to everybody about what's going on and how can we deal with conflict in a more healthy way rather than in the way that's happening. If there's a lot of turnover where they can't keep employees, why are people quitting all of the time? So looking at that and understanding why they're not able to retain people. Why are they not able to find good people, right? So there's so many different aspects of this. It really is a round 360-degree kind of thing from the time you hire the employee to the time they leave. There is all this stuff, and performance management is huge. So I'm willing to bet that anybody listening either today or in the future, if they're a small business with a few employees, they probably don't have a performance management system. And performance management is not that once a year, let's sit down and, tick off the boxes. Performance management it's a feedback. It's like, how do you elicit feedback from your employees about what they think about their jobs and how they like it there? Imagine, I've never been asked, hey, do you like working here? Like, I wish my boss had asked, because I would yeah, but you know what? There's these couple of things that kind of bug me in two-way conversations, right? Performance management should be two-way. So that's culture right there. Where you're able to talk to your boss about something and know that you're not going to get fired for it. You can have a conversation. Your boss knows that you have their best interest at heart. And you as an employee know that your boss has your best interest at heart. So that's really the basis of a good company culture.
Excellent. And as you're talking, I really like the way you put that. It really made me think about. I'll be a little bit vulnerable here and be honest and say one thing that's true about most small businesses or even larger businesses maybe is that the employees sometimes, but often don't appreciate the investment that the owners make in the business in terms of how much of their personal assets or wealth are connected to the success of the business, how much time they put in at late nights or whatever weekends or things like that outside of business hours when the employee doesn't see it. these kind of things. And that's maybe one of the chief complaints about small business owners is that my employees don't appreciate how much I do, right? But that makes me think about a couple of things. One is that it is super important. And as a consultant, I give financial advice. I create financial plans for people. The number one piece of advice I give to people, if you can only invest in one thing, or if you only have a little bit of money to invest, the first thing you should invest in is yourself, right? Invest in building your skills and building your confidence and building your abilities and that kind of thing. But we all, small business owners also need to invest in their staff, right? It, a lot of employees, and I'm sure you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure you'll probably confirm this, is most employees would rather have an honest pat on the back, an honest thank you than even a little bit more money, right? Money is important, but if they feel like they're pretty much fairly compensated, they really would rather have appreciation and thank you and a pat on the back than here's a gift card, here's another dollar an hour or whatever. But it brings me to the thought too that I know a lot of small business owners, and I thought this way too, is that if I spend a lot of money on my staff, that's say building culture and doing all these things. That's an expense that I'm not sure I can afford right now, or I know I can't afford, or I don't want to give up my weekends at the cabin and the this and that in exchange for that. But I really want to challenge people to think about it not as an expense, but as an investment in their business, another type of investment in their business, because I know that a lot of people will think when cash flow increases and when profit increases, then I'll invest more in my staff. But if you take a little bit of time and effort to build this culture like you're talking about in your business, it will pay dividends in revenues and profits and empowered and capable employees beyond what you can imagine.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But what occurred to me when you were talking was something that I say a lot to business owners is that, okay, so you started a business, you probably needed to go to the bank, get some money, whatever. You probably wrote a business strategy, right? You probably thought, okay, here's my market, my customers, my product, et cetera, right? You forecasted, you did all this stuff because that's what you do when you have a business, or at least you should. Not saying I did that, but that's a whole other story for another podcast. Anyway, most business owners will do that. And then they'll think about, okay, the employees, I need 2 heads here and 5 people there, right? Employees are an item on the spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There is no specialized people strategy for these employees. Spreadsheet. They're just going to come along magically, fit, do their best. They're going to do the work and they're going to get paid X amount of dollars per hour and then they'll go home and everything will be great. So that is a very flat 2-dimensional look at human beings who are incredibly complicated, who can make you money and who can cost you money. Right. Yes, payroll is going to cost you because, you can't get people to work for you for free. So you are going to have to pay, you're going to have to be competitive, et cetera, et cetera. But how do you get the most bang for that buck? So just the payroll and benefits, if you've got them, how do you get the most benefit out of that in terms of the profitability of your company business? But secondly, if you do realize that there's other things I can do, but it's an expense and I don't want to incur that because you've got to understand that you can spend money unknowingly and waste it. Right? The result may not be what you want. That can happen in any aspect of business. So anything else, you need to know what you're doing and why and what that outcome is. So it's a people strategy, right? And again, people strategy is specialized because you are thinking about your product, your service, all about that, all about the industry, the market. But first of all, if I'm going to hire people, what are they going to do? What do I need them for? A lot of times what happens in business is you put up a posting, you get somebody in, and they might be really terrific at something. And you think, I hired you for this, but you know what? I need you to do all these other things. Some people love that. Some people hate that. Like, I'm sorry, I wasn't hired to do all this. Why am I cleaning bathrooms now? Whatever. There's this sense of you're gonna trade your labor for wages, and because I pay you, you're gonna do what I say.
Mm.
And if you don't, then there will be consequences for you, which is fine. But where in all of that did the question of profitability and productivity come up? It didn't, right? It was
Mm.
like this two-dimensional object that's just going to come in and do the work. So people strategy is about, okay, first of all, what is the job and why is the job? What is the function of the job? Is this the best type of structure for this job? I actually want that. So maybe I shouldn't be hiring that. I should be hiring somebody to do that. So that sort of thing. Then understanding, what does this person look like? What are their skills? What are their attributes? What kind of personality do you like? So that's that recruitment piece. So you find that person, you put them in place. And then once you get them, how well did you welcome them? How well did you make them feel like, hey, we're real happy to have you. We're going to train you how to do this. You know what? You made a mistake. It's okay. We're not going to bang you over the head for it. We're going to teach you how to do it better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So how you welcome that person in, how you manage their performance. And at the end of the day, that is what is going to make it or break it for your business. Because if they love you and what they do, and they love the customers and whatever else it is to love. And I'm using the word love because we are, as humans, we do have love and belonging needs, which are second only to security. I'm thinking Maslow's hierarchy. So love and belonging doesn't just happen at home. It happens at work too, where, you know what, I love the people I work with. That boss, that Cory, what a great guy. Like, he totally did this for me, whatever. Sometimes owners get really confused and they think, oh yeah, I just have to give, and they're just going to take and take. And that's not it at all. That's not it at all. If you are giving without getting anything back, there's something wrong with what you're doing and how you're giving, and you're not reading your audience.
Right.
So if you're not reading your audience as well, don't blame them for not reacting the way that you need them to. And that's where people's strategy comes in.
For sure. And it makes me think too, as you're saying that, it's back to what I said earlier about employees not understanding bosses. Maybe one of the chief complaints about employees is they don't get me, right? And for a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of small business owners, many of them came from other careers and from other businesses or from government or whatever, and went off on to do this venture. But many of them haven't been through the rigorous and painful and stressful job application processes. And I know from positions I've applied for, you're taking a big risk when you accept a position with a company, right? You're taking the risk that person told you the truth about what the job is like and what the responsibilities are. Like you said, sometimes they change just after you're hired, they change what you're going to do. And I've been through many situations like that where I won't name the federal department that I used to work for. But one of the ads, the reason I applied for this position, the ad said, "Come and help change the culture," right? And I thought, oh, that'd be amazing if I could be a part of helping change the culture of this organization, even if it was just a department or whatever. After a number of years, it became clear to me nobody but me and a couple other people had any intention of changing the culture. That was years of banging my head against the wall and a lot of frustration. But as I said to the employees, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, please appreciate how stressful it is for an employee to accept the position, even if everything seems wonderful. Even if you think they're God's gift to your company, they've taken on a lot of risk to accept that position, and that treat that with respect and really help them be successful. Make sure that they're welcome, that they're onboarded correctly, all those important things.
Yeah. And we know statistically the quality of onboarding leads to length of retention. We know this. Yeah. Here's the other thing that occurred to me when I was often occurred to me that my employees didn't appreciate me or didn't understand what I do. That is exactly where the term employee engagement comes from. So that's a buzzword in HR that we hear a lot of. What does it mean to have an engaged employee? An engaged employee is somebody who will own that company the way that you do. What that means is that, yes, at bottom line is they're trading their time for a wage or a salary. But then there's that intrinsic rewards, like they love their job. Okay, so they're liking what they do. So there's a good fit between their scalability and what you're asking them to do. But there's also a real sense of my contribution does X. So every time a customer is happy, it's because of how I treated them. Or every time a customer makes this purchase, it puts money into the business. And then I get paid. And then maybe sometimes if there's incentive pay, you pay on commission or things like that. So that's the pay aspect of it. But the other aspect, which is what people tend to default to, which is important. Money is important. Let's be clear. But the part that's really important is how much does that employee feel like it's their business too, right? Hearing your stories, hearing your passion, hearing why you got into business. And when you look at your customers, what do you think? What do you feel? Those are things that are in your heart that need to come out onto your mouth as statements so that they can hear and go, you know what? Cory was really mad that day, but I get why he's so frustrated because you know what? He was up all night the night before because the books or whatever. So they get it. So in the same way that you might be treating them as cogs in a wheel, they might be looking at you as just the ATM. It goes both ways.
Sure.
Yeah. So again, it's intentional. Some people just, it happens by default because they just happen to have those personality traits or whatever. But we know that most business owners are highly analytical types, right?
Yeah.
They don't necessarily understand the nuances of human behavior as well in the context of their business. And so they need some help with that. And that's what one of the things that I really bring. As I mentioned, I have a psychology degree. My HR practice is very, very behaviorally based. So I'm not going to throw metrics at you. I'm not going to throw, charts and tables and things like that at you. I'm only going to give you those tools in as much as you need them for something. But I'm going to concentrate on your understanding of these people that you have and also the understanding of what you want to have and how that will make you get the business that you want. And so by creating the culture, by setting those, creating that environment, creating the conditions for success as you define it.
Excellent. And so you mentioned a couple of things. I just want to touch on this since they're almost as a half a summary. You talked about how you help small business owners develop culture, and that's really critical. You mentioned hiring. Do you help small business owners with the hiring process? And if so, how do you help them with that? Or if not, what else? Yeah.
Yeah, so great question. Because in small business, one of the first things when I first started on my own, everybody was like, "Oh, can you find me people? Can you find me people?" And I thought, okay, yeah, I can. But there are a lot of great recruiters out there. And there's a lot of recruiters who recruit for small business. And there's a lot of great platforms out there. In answer to your question, no, I'm not a recruitment specialist because it's a specialized role. It's time consuming. It's very focused it's a sales role in terms of, okay, client. So you're looking for X, Y, and Z. So let's look at the market. Let's create the posting. Let's interview people. Let's sell the company, all of that. So I don't do that work. What I will do is I will do a staffing review or a plan, or if somebody says, "Hey, I need to hire 2 people because I'm just run off my feet or whatever." So I will have the conversation with them to get them to sort out, okay, what makes sense here? What is it that you need to happen? And let's make sure that those things are aligned with your future growth, with your budget, I don't do budgets per se, but getting them to think about all of the different sustainability of that. And then I'll help them create a job profile. And then they can, and if they want me to, I can create even a job posting and then they can give that to a recruiter to do, or they can work with a recruiter to do that piece. But I help them get in the right mindset so that their recruiting efforts are successful, because the recruiter is only going to give them whatever they ask. So I got to make
Right.
sure they're asking for the right things and have realistic expectations. The recruiter will do a lot of that work in terms of here's the market, here's what the pay should be, those types of things, because so we work in tandem. It's just that I really focus my efforts on retention. So once they get in the company, what do we do with them? So that's why I don't do recruitment, because that is a full-time job in itself. Yeah.
Excellent. No problem. No judgment there. I just wanted to clarify because that is something that a lot of the viewers are going to wonder about. Um, so what else you mentioned? I just want to go back to the introduction I gave on you. We talked about relevant support for small business owners and being accessible. I have one question on that. What do you mean by being accessible to small business owners? And then after that, I want to discuss, and you talked about or my interest is being affordable. What does affordable mean to you, and how does that look like for the small business owner? Do you have certain packages, or we'll just talk about that a little bit. So first of all, if we can talk about how you're accessible to small business owners.
Absolutely. That to me was really important because I found, being part of networking groups with other small businesses, one of the things I found was that the small business market is so underserviced
Mm.
when it comes to HR. HR is really one of those nasty corporate terms that are expensive but it doesn't mean that they don't run into problems, right? Wouldn't it be great if you had any problem, whatever, with your employee, whether it's they're calling in sick a lot, I got a WCB issue because they got hurt at work, or they're stealing, or whatever is going on. Wouldn't it be great if you could just be like, hey, Shama, I need some help. And Shama says, lay it on me. What do you need? Right? They don't have a go-to like that. So what I'm doing is I'm providing accessible service. So it's the most popular way to go is a 3-hour prepaid package. I will bill in 15-minute increments and it doesn't expire. I'm in the midst of launching a new website. It's coming up in the next month or so, but you'll be able to sign on, get your own sort of portal, and you'll be able to, so this is not a subscription. It's a if you want to type of thing. You could pay for 3 hours in advance, and you had a question, you just fire me off an email. You will get an answer within a certain time frame, depending how urgent it is, about what you need to do here. And then if it ends up being something bigger, then, I can let you know that, okay, you know what, we need to have a little bit of a bigger talk on this. And is this the direction that you want to go? So this way people can get some great value. They can get their questions answered on the fly. Something bad happens and they don't know what the answer is. Rather than searching the net, just have a partner that you can call. I want to be that person for small business owners. I want my company, if I'm not available, then there's somebody, a clone of me, the same sort of philosophies and the same skill set to help them through. Like I said, I get a lot of people hiring me because they have an employee that they need to fire.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, I need to get rid of this person. What do I do? And that there's so much more to that story. Like, what happened? Sometimes, every once in a while, you do get that nightmare employee. Absolutely. But I'm going to say, in all my years of experience, what I have seen is that those nightmare employees are created.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes you inherit them, you get them, but most of that stuff is created and could be avoided.
Hmm.
Yeah, because people are not all two-dimensional objects, right?
Yeah, for sure. So they get access to you through the portal on your website. Is that they put in a question, you call them back, you email them? How does that interaction work? And if it is by email or that sort of thing, is there an option for them to pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, here's what I'm dealing with?
Yeah, so at the moment, it's going to be through like a contact form, just so that I can handle. I hope that it becomes busy enough that I can hire some people, put them in whose sole job it would be to answer those questions. But in the beginning, I think it will be, for now, it's going to be a contact form, but one that is monitored consistently. I will be setting, they'll be able to say this is immediate rush, as opposed to this can wait till the next business day kind of thing, right? So people can specify what they need, and then I will respond accordingly. And if it's a rush, I'll pick up the phone and be, hey, what's going on, right? Because I'm not going to just go back and forth on email because it sounds like this is a developing situation and you need help right away. So it is very much like having somebody on call. It's just that I'm not in the office, but I'm there within a reasonable amount of time to get you what you need, and appropriate to what you need. If it could be something that can wait till next week, and I'm not going to take that long, but you know what, you get what I'm saying.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. And then, so you're very accessible that way. That's excellent. Affordable. So you probably have different packages or different levels of, you mentioned a 3-hour prepaid. Do you have any other options, or if someone wants more, a higher level of service, for example, or what are your options there?
Currently, I offer 3 different packages. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm just looking over here to let
Okay.
you know this
Mhm.
is. The first one, it's called the connection package, and it's a 3-hour package, which I am offering it for $399. That is valued at over 500, but because I'm wanting to really say, hey, I want to be your partner, let's connect, and whatever you need, it might only be 15 minutes of my time. That's all I'll bill you for. Maybe it's a half an hour. That's it. So the connection package is just meant to be get to know and as needed kind of thing. Then there's the Trestle package, which is 10 hours, and that's valued that's $999. It's 10 hours of time. That one is valued at $1,750. So that, again, I'm giving you a really good deal on that one. That one would be for a company that, let's say, you've got a few employees, you know that there's a bunch of things that you would like to address. And you figure that it's going to be more than the 3 hours, and you'd like to have some hours in the bank for later as they come up, because you know you're going to need some help. So the Trestle package is really good for that one. It's a 10-hour. And it's $1,000, but I said a lot can be done in 10 hours. And for the bigger companies who need more of let me tell you what it is. So it's called the extension package, and it's 25 hours, and it is $2,999, so about 3,000. That one will include an on-site visit, a systems audit, and implementation support. So let's say that there's things that, I come in and meet you and meet the people. Let's say that you're wanting to implement something, whether it's a benefits package or maybe you're implementing new software and you're worried about the change management aspect of it. There's always an HR side to change management. By the way, by way of resume, I'm also a certified change management practitioner. So whenever we do put things in place, let's say there's a new policy manual now that all these rules and regulations, and showing them to people and getting them to understand why it's there and how it benefits them, kind of thing. So
Sure.
that type of stuff. And then I can bill additional hours as needed. So that is a 25-hour package for $3,000, which really, if you think about it, is really not a lot of money.
Very affordable.
To get. Yeah. This is, again, 3 different levels, and the relationship is the most important thing.
Hmm.
Once I meet you, they meet me, you meet me, we understand each other. I understand your business, what I can do. And then you get that sense of comfort. You know what? No question is too small. I can just fire this away and she'll help me with that. So just to really have that little bit of support. And then the website itself have I'm going to have a blog, and there's going to be lots of government resources and a lot of things on there. So there'll be like a hub of information as well, which is coming. So I'm really excited. I think it's something that will be very useful to small business owners in Alberta to start. So yeah, I'm excited and fingers crossed.
Excellent. That's great. I appreciate that. And I think as you're explaining that, I'm like, man, that really is affordable. That is really affordable. And I
Hugely.
know, and I know money's tight for a lot of people right now, and in lots of ways. I get that, and I don't minimize that whatsoever. But 25 hours for, I think you said 29.95.
Yeah.
$3,000. Yeah, a small business can go through $3,000 in no time, especially when it comes to hiring specialists and experts. And yeah, that's a tremendous value.
I
So
just
what I'd,
want to add that small business owners never value their time.
mm,
So when they save money because they're DIYing it, it's costing them a ton of money and time.
mhm,
So and that's the thing about HR is that there's no government rule that says you have to pay HR people. And so that's why they'll DIY. Sometimes they luck out and sometimes they don't. So the money that you would pay somebody like me ends up saving you so much money and time down the road, right? So
right.
it's a tough one when money is tight. I get that. So,
Yeah. And I don't want to be misunderstood here, but that can happen. But it just reminds me of the old saying for lawyers: the lawyer who defends himself has a fool for a client. And I'm not trying to call anyone a fool, but there is a certain wisdom, is what I'm trying to say. To rather than thinking, well, I'll just figure this out myself, I'll stay up a couple nights or whatever. It is so costly beyond in many different ways. If you absolutely have $0, you have to do what you have to do, and I'm not diminishing that either. But if you have a little bit of cash flow at all in your business, invest that little bit very wisely in someone like Shama, because I speak from experience. When I took over a business, bought a business, however many years ago, I don't remember now, 2003, I guess it was, and fairly quickly realized I had inherited a couple of employees that were a challenge to me, and I won't say much more than that. But I was sued. I let them go, and I was sued, and I basically processed a lot of that myself. And I did a lot of, not exaggerating, I had a lot of 20-hour days and 4 hours of sleep, multiple days work, 7 days a week for weeks and weeks, trying to manage that myself. And as expensive as it might have been to pay a lawyer, they would have done it in a lot less time. So it wouldn't have been as expensive as I might have feared. But the stress off of me would have allowed me to work on other income producing activities. And just from my, again, being a little bit vulnerable, I encourage people not to underestimate the value of hiring someone like yourself who really can be save the day in terms of taking something very frustrating and stressful off of their plate, and giving them some free headspace and time and life space to do other things and maintain their family and not lose their cool with an employee and these sorts of things. Yeah, it really is super valuable to have an expert like you in their corner, and I hope lots of people will make use of your availability here. And speaking of which, we're not quite at the end, but we're getting close. I just want to give you a chance. Just want to point out your contact information is there on your screen behind you there. Thank you for providing that. I want to encourage people to take advantage of that and get a hold of you and just see if you're a good fit. I'm not a good fit for everybody. You're not a good fit for everybody, but we don't know until we call, right? Send an email and just have a conversation and find out.
yeah. And actually, you know what? I wanted to just add thank you, first of all, for the vulnerability and sharing that experience, because I think business owners have a really tough time running a business. And if there's a failure, I don't like that word, but when something doesn't go wrong, their self-esteem takes a huge hit, and it's really hard. And there's a whole aspect of entrepreneurship. The mental health aspect of it is something that I talk about quite a bit. And so thank you so much. I know it would have been a very difficult time for you. So thanks so much for sharing that. But what I wanted to say was, I think what's really important is to understand that we are all human beings and that relationships are so important, right? We spend a lot of time networking, we spend a lot of time with like-minded professionals, etc. Of course, we all need community, but we also need people that we can count on and lean on when we need it. right? So for me, yes, I charge for my services, but that doesn't mean that you can't call me and go, I need this, once I get to know you kind of thing. I'm not going to, I know there's professionals, you'll go out to lunch with them and then they'll send you a bill. That's not me. I value relationship above all else. And there are clients, there's people that I've been introduced to that I won't take on as clients because I don't see eye to eye with them in terms of the value of the relationship piece. What you're seeing is what you're getting. And I'm in your corner. We're both on the same side. It's about your business doing well and my business doing well, because then if you're happy, then you'll tell somebody, et cetera, et cetera. So never underestimate the importance of relationship. And I will continue to say that. Yeah, always.
For sure. And I appreciate that so much. And I appreciate you so much, Shama, for coming out tonight and the conversations we've had already. And I can tell you're going to be a tremendous asset to clients. And even as we're talking, I'm thinking, you know what, I'm going to hire someone soon and I need to talk to you about that and the culture right? The culture that I want to create. Yeah, exactly. And to speak back to that, just very briefly before we end, I really, as I said, that example I gave of those employees that I let go and that I was sued and all that. And I really could have used someone like you in my corner. And I didn't have that. And it's one of the reasons why I'm trying and working so hard to partner with people like yourself, that I want other small business owners to avoid the same frustrations, or to at least minimize the frustrations that I experienced by having access to someone like yourself. For people to realize, you're not crazy. You might be, but in a fun way, like me. It's not crazy to run a business or own a business. It's an amazing thing to do. It's honorable. It's noble. It's not for everyone, so good on you for doing it. And it's normal to struggle and to not know how to do everything and to have every part of your business tied down in a neat little box that works perfectly. You're an expert in what you do. You're not necessarily an expert in managing people or managing numbers or being sales or whatever. So it's okay to have an expert like Shama in your corner and to reach out to her for a small question or for a big project, and to develop a culture or to clarify the culture in your company. So jump on that opportunity and take your business to another level. So I wanted, before I go, and I figured out how to do this, is figure out how to point in the right direction, because I'm looking at the camera backwards. But that little QR code there, folks, is how you can get a hold of me. I'll do a free half an hour or so discovery call with you. Like I said a minute ago, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but if you don't reach out, you'll never know if I'm your cup of tea. And I just may be exactly what you're looking for in terms of a financial advice giving financial expert in your corner. And I didn't mention this at the beginning, but how I approach small business owners is I look at your business assets and your personal assets as two parts of one holistic financial picture. They're intertwined in lots of ways, and you can use each of them to play off of each other and grow your entire wealth picture a lot faster and a lot safer with the right guidance. I hope to be the person that helps guide you through that. We run a minute over our hour tonight. I just want to again thank you, Shama, for coming out, for all the advice you gave, and for the relevant advice you gave, that for the accessibility that you offer, and for the super affordable options that you give to people. And I look forward to working with you into the future.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Cory.
All right. Cheers. Have a good night.